Welcome to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show, where we talk about business, leadership, and career development. Hey everybody, welcome back to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show. We love having Rita Sever on our show. She's an organizational trainer and an author, and she is the author of Supervision Matters, 100 Bite-Sized Ideas to Transform You and Your Team. And the second book is Leading for Justice, Supervision, HR, and Culture. She's a regular guest here on Big Blend Radio, and you can keep up with her at supervisionmatters.com. But I was going to say, Rita, how long did we go back? It's actually quite a ways.
My first book came out in 2016, and that's when I met you.
Yeah. So, hey, we're doing good. We're on 8 years then.
Yes.
Hey,
and I love it.
The number 8 is infinity. I love it too.
Great.
I love that. Yeah, we've stayed in touch over years, and it's good to have you on the shows. And last month we talked about HR, and just as soon as we started talking, we realized, okay, we're going to have to do part 1 and part 2 of this conversation in regards to human resources. Last month we talked about specifically for smaller organizations, whether it's a nonprofit, which I know you do a lot of work with, or a business. And today we're going to do part 2, and everything is in the show notes, the links to Rita's website, but also to last month's podcast. So if you want to hear part 1 and 2, you can do that. Today is the good, the bad, and the possible, because we don't want to talk about ugliness. There's enough of that in the world. The good, the bad. So let's just go kind of back to the beginning of when do you go from having one HR person, which is kind of what we were talking about last time, into now you need a department, and how much responsibility goes into that? Is a department more than one person or 5? Like, where does that happen?
Right. Well, I think as soon as you have more than one, you've got a department. And last time we talked about the need to hire somebody dedicated to HR, at least part-time, when you're around 15 to 20. And we talked about some of the signs of when you need to do that. And I think the same signs apply to when you need more people. When the person who's doing HR is overwhelmed and doesn't have time to do the soft parts of HR, soft with quotations, by which I mean the people part, which is really the heart of HR, but they're so busy doing the administrative or the function part of HR that they don't have time to talk to people. Then you need more people. When you're, missing any major deadlines, either paperwork you have to file or payroll or anything critical like that, then absolutely you need to get more people in there. In general, the rule of thumb is that for I think it was every 100 people, you need one HR person. So at least
that's a lot.
That is a lot. It's a lot.
That's
Very different than what I think you need.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's almost like how many kids go into a classroom. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Where I think, you don't need one for every 25, but maybe, I don't
Every
know,
50?
I haven't really thought about this, but maybe 50. Yeah, by the time you have 100, having at least 1.5 full-time people, maybe 2, because there's so much paperwork and details to take care of. And then again, you really want time for the HR department to have time for people. That is the point of it. That is going to save you trouble in the long run if whoever does HR can have an open door and be seen as known and trustworthy. That's what you need.
And still adhere to principles. In other words, we've talked about this on, I think, every show. In HR, you don't make exceptions for people, because it's going to come back and get you, and it's going to not help the business, right? So you have to keep everything, cleany weeny.
Absolutely. And you have to make time for people and be accessible. But on the other hand, you can't be friends with certain people and not with other people, because that's going to look like you have a conflict of interest, especially if it looks like HR is friends or aligned with management. Then line staff won't trust HR. So you have to be really careful to be friendly, but not particular friends.
when you're looking at an organization with 100+ people in it, right? 200, whatever, people are working their way up. And that's where things can get a little tricky in regards to communication, relationships among colleagues, management.
Mhm.
And that's when the things can happen with harassment, discrimination, even amongst just the workers, right? The employees. So
Right,
this is when labor law starts to step in, and where the human resource professionals have to be on it with the labor laws. I talk about Ward Heinrichs on our show with you all the time. The attorney, employment attorney, he goes, start at HR. He goes, and don't
right,
involve the lawyers, but because it's going to cost you a lot, number one. But
right.
HR really is that buffer zone for things getting out of hand, right?
Absolutely. And it isn't, there is a layer where the situation you're talking about when people move up and they have former friends or friends and now they're supervising them, things get extra messy then, but it can happen anytime. You
Mm,
need to be really clear about policies and practices and where the line is and what you can and can't do, and show that you mean it. So you
mm,
don't, for example, do a harassment training and just say, just check off the box that you did it. Just tell me you did it. You take it seriously and you talk about real things and you
mm,
let people know, I want to hear if you're uncomfortable. And
mm.
that doesn't mean it's harassment, but we want to address it then so that we can make everyone feel safe, protected, and be able to do their work.
It's really hard, especially if it's coming from the management, though, harassment. That's
Right,
the other part, right? So that's where you're in the middle. And we touched on that before, but when it gets to bigger companies, you've got more people involved sometimes than one. You know what I mean? It can
right,
be a bigger problem because of multiple people and
right.
gossip.
Gossip. And again, if people feel like HR is just there to protect management, then they're not going to go to HR when they're feeling harassed. And they're going
Mm,
to wait until they have a lawsuit. Where you want to back it up and be accessible and clear right from the start that, again, anytime something's going on, I am here to help you work your way through it.
mm.
Because
Yeah.
when people see or feel that HR is just there to protect management, then it's not effective.
Mm,
It's not
okay.
as effective anyway.
Right. You're there for the whole company as a whole.
Yeah, I
That's
always,
have to look at it.
because I work with nonprofits primarily, I
Mm,
always think I'm there to work for the mission. And that's
mm,
true whether it's nonprofit or for profit. You're there for the company, not for an individual, not for the CEO, not for the managers. You're there to make the whole company successful.
okay. So the mission. And so do you want the employees to adopt that way of thinking too? Wouldn't that help with all the drama that can happen?
It can certainly help. It can certainly set what the bottom line is. We're here for the mission. And,
Mm,
as an individual employee, I will do all I can to support you to do your best
mm,
work. And if there comes a time when it isn't working, then we're going to talk about that too, because the mission
wow.
comes first.
So does human resource professionals get into the hiring and firing? Who does that part? Like, because I know management will probably want to interview according to specifics, but some isn't HR on hand for interviews and then sometimes end up having to handle it's a
It does,
goodbye.
yeah, it does vary by company. Sometimes HR does the hiring and the terminations, but what I practiced when I was an active HR was I was there to make sure, again, everything was legal, help with logistics, support the managers, help them
Mhm,
make the decisions. But unless they were doing something illegal, it was their decision, and they were
mm,
the ones who carried out the hiring and the
mm.
firing if necessary.
Okay. And then you help with the follow-up part, like if there's a severance package and stuff like that. That's
Absolutely.
where you have to know all those details.
Right, right.
Okay. And follow through on, unemployment, all of that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And even more so before the actual event, making sure all their ducks are in a row. Does this person know that they are in danger of being fired?
Mm,
Is this the first they're gonna hear about it? If so,
mm.
you can't do it unless it's something egregious.
Okay. And then what about also when you look at hiring someone where it could be that, we're going to evaluate your performance for the first 30, 60, 90 days kind of thing to see if it's a really good fit. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of you're not 100% in the company after, until we really monitor
Mhm.
this. Do a lot of organizations do that?
I think most do, yes.
Okay.
Certainly the ones I've worked with have used that introductory period is what they often call it. And
Okay.
the way I framed it was just what you said, that this is the final stage of the hiring process. Until you get through this period, neither one of us know for sure if this is a go or not.
Mm. And
Because
yeah, then would the HR be part of that too?
sort of facilitating it, they wouldn't
Mhm.
be the ones to necessarily make the decision, but they'd probably meet with the manager and say, do you have any concerns? What are they? What do you
Mm.
need to be confident about this person, and help facilitate it that way?
Okay. And then going back to communication, because I think this is key to it all. Um, you talk about having an open door, but what about like I'm going to put it this way, like a restaurant setting, right? A good server or hostess kind of hovers when you know that, maybe things are not getting out of the kitchen too quick. It's time to go and see if they need another drink order, maybe give them some extra chips and salsa or whatever, right? For a restaurant. Like you kind of hover and know that you're there.
Mm.
Um, like better, innkeepers are really good at that. They know people are going to come and check out, so they kind of hover, be around to know what's going on and when your clients need something, right? Um, so is that kind of the same thing for a HR professional that, if there's a break room and coffee is like kind of linger around so that it's kind of a more of an open door, like, oh, she went into the HR office. I wonder who she's
Right.
ratting out.
Good point, yes. It's tricky because often if HR all of a sudden walks into the lunchroom, conversation is just gonna stop just because of what you just said. It's like,
Okay.
uh-oh, it's in trouble. But if the HR person or department is part of things all the time, then that isn't as strong. So yes,
Okay.
I wanna have people come in and just chat with me. I wanna sit in on staff meetings occasionally and reassure people I'm just here to see what's going on. Nobody's in
Mm,
trouble. And
mm,
just be part of the organization in an ongoing way. I did a lot of trainings, and that's how I often got to know people and be part of what was going on. When I was HR director, I still did every orientation because I
okay.
wanted people to know who I was, and again,
Okay.
that my door was open, so I didn't delegate that to anybody else.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah. So you makes people feel comfortable and know, yeah, okay, this is the person to call, not don't go to that person. You don't even say don't go to that person because she's going to be after your job. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because it's competitive, right? We've got to also look at that,
Okay.
the competitiveness, in
Right.
in a company or a nonprofit. It can, you know, I- it's supposed to be a little competitive, isn't it? You want
Well,
that,
in
but
a
you
good
don't want
way,
it
you
in an
want
yeah.
people doing their best work. Yeah,
Exactly, but not being yeah, not going over the board and being rude or anything like that.
right.
So,
At the same time, I would also talk to managers and assure them that my door is open and
mm,
it's okay for people to come talk to me. And if it's something they should be talking to you about, I will send them back to you.
mm,
Because I
yeah.
don't want to undermine the managers. If somebody gets a no from a manager that they can't adjust their schedule, I don't want them coming to HR and just saying, I want a different schedule. I want to
Oh,
hear if, they need an accommodation and that's why they're asking for a change schedule.
yeah.
Then
Well,
did your manager talk about that? But if it's a management decision, then I will at least go with them to the manager, if not send them back.
okay, because even like when it comes to taking paid vacation or something like that, that's important that you do it like not at the busiest time at work or something,
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's
I'm
gonna.
not gonna override something like that.
Right. I mean, yeah. When it comes to also management, the HR role too is to keep the managers on track of what is legal and what is not.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're sometimes it does come that it's, as you said, a manager who's doing what is illegal or
Oh,
inappropriate, and then being able to call them on it myself if they'll listen to me, and if not, bring in their manager.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happens if it's the actual head person? That's hard.
It is hard. It's very tricky because
This
not
is the
only are
ugly
they the
part.
head person, but they're usually the HR person's manager.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that is part of why HR is tricky and lonely, because HR has to know that, they can go to the board of directors if necessary, or, you know,
Okay.
call the CEO on it if necessary. And, that doesn't always work, but
Mm.
they have to do their best, because otherwise, not only are you ignoring a real problem, but you're creating distrust again. Because
Okay.
people are watching very carefully to see, are you gonna talk to the CEO about this, or are you gonna look the other way or make excuses for them?
So distrust is a big deal. So we don't want that.
Absolutely.
But you want everyone to work in unison. Like you want a well-oiled machine. Like you want your car to have the oil that it needs. Someone's polished the car, it's kept
Right.
clean so it runs well. You want that.
Yes, you want people, with a clear focus of everybody's working together. I often use the metaphor of rowing in the same direction. You don't want
Yeah.
somebody off doing their own thing that's gonna mess
Okay.
up things down the road. So,
Okay. So is it good to have like a general, like a staff meeting with HR, really just checking in on people and like an actual formal, hey, we all get together once a month, or maybe it's coffee or a picnic, or where is that on things, especially with now when it's got to be a little bit trickier where people are working remotely too. So you can't, like the communication between employees is not as monitored, right? Not that you want to be
right.
nosy, but you don't know if someone's messaging really bad stuff or.
Yeah, you can't just bump into people at the proverbial water cooler and chat for a while. So,
Yeah.
yes, you wanna have, morale events where happy hour, virtual or otherwise, or, I'm a big proponent of small bits of playtime. So let's have a Zoom call where we're gonna do trivia for 10 minutes. And if you're small enough, everybody does that. If you're bigger, then you do it by departments. I think the idea of, again, HR dropping in on a staff meeting, not dropping in unexpectedly, but being part of it on a regular basis, and just, you
Mm,
know, talking about something important to staff, or doing something fun, just again, so you're a known entity.
mm,
People can connect with you. Then there's also the important part of doing like an annual anonymous survey, because not everybody is going to feel comfortable going to HR, either
okay.
because of the stigma you mentioned before. Ooh, what's going on? They're going behind closed doors,
Mm-hmm.
or because they're just not sure if they should talk about it, or they're shy, or they don't want to get
Yeah.
anybody in trouble. There's all kinds of reasons they might not bring an issue up. So having a way to get input at least once a year in a way that is safe for people. Some HR
Okay.
departments have a hotline, an anonymous
Hmm.
hotline where you can call and report things. So some way that you can hear from people.
The other thing too is like if there's a merger or new ownership or new leadership,
Mm,
sometimes there's the way where there's a new leader and they go in and fire everyone. People get, okay, the boat's getting rocked, and as
mm.
soon as that happens, people get nervous, and they sometimes have good reason to be. So wouldn't you say HR is crucial when there's a big change within an organization, especially when it comes to leadership, or maybe it's an expansion, a merger, maybe it's a new program that's going to tax
Absolutely.
everybody a little bit more. You're going to bring more employees in. Um, so that kind of thing to keep people feeling like it's still moving forward. Sometimes it's not.
Right, right. Yeah, that's really getting more into the organizational development part of
Okay.
HR, but I think they're so intertwined. I have my degree in organizational psychology, but to me, they're just so much a part of each other. But absolutely, HR or OD, if you're big enough that you have both departments, um, they need to be involved in those conversations right from the start so that
Mhm.
the part that you're talking about, how people will feel about all this, is considered all along the way.
Mm.
And if it's a merger or big changes, then a change process to support people. And
Mm.
even if it is the worst case scenario where people are going to be laid off, how can we prepare people? How can we support them? We
Right.
don't want to be the people who they just find out through an email at a day before that they're
Yeah.
losing a job. Let's not be that person.
Well, I think I told you about that, a friend who works in a nonprofit, and they fired the head guy, like this one of the top people. There's a new leader, and she never goes to any public events. She never shows her face, doesn't communicate well, and then fired this gentleman who apparently was really carrying the organization, So this gets weird.
Yeah,
Emails him that he's fired, but copied everybody on that email. And I think at that to me, I almost feel is a legality because it's
right.
demoralizing.
Privacy. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
that's
a
privacy.
privacy issue there.
But then you've got someone who, if you have to lay off a bunch of people, right, and you see these stats and numbers all the time, and this is why unions are starting to get really popular right now with the way things are going.
Uh,
All these, big distribution centers, and everybody gets excited about them coming to town, but it's not always that positive.
right.
But unions are growing from what I can tell, and I want to touch on that with you in a little second. But when layoffs and things happen and you don't take care of the employees that have been there for years or even new, right? If they are told in a really bad way, is it just not a very bad marketing move and PR move too?
Absolutely. People will know about that. And sometimes they don't have any choice but to keep working there, but they are not going to be happy
Mm.
employees. They are going to be, at least somewhat disengaged, untrusting, looking for a way to make trouble if something comes along. Where if you have good trust, people will usually, give you some grace if something is messed up. But in that situation, there is no grace because you
Mm.
did not show grace.
Yeah. So that's not a good, that's a no-no.
That's not a good
Now,
call.
unions, this is a very interesting thing because it seems that it has to almost nowadays start as a grassroots within the company. So does HR, what that's got to be when you even start to hear about it, and then people that really want to make it work because there's a need for it. There's some famous cases that have happened over the last few years. Then, are you scared you're going to get fired because now so there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of strength in it too with what people are doing. So don't we want to not have to even have that happen? I have to say.
From an HR perspective, from my perspective of HR, I want to be the one who's taking care of people and supporting them and building trust so that they don't feel like they need a union. On the other hand, there are absolutely places and situations where a union is the only way that people are going to be heard or get what they need.
Mm.
So it does put HR in a little bit different situation, but there is absolutely a room for both.
Okay.
HR and unions can work together. Historically, it hasn't happened a lot, but I think, if you have honest, clear conversations and you're working for the same thing, then you can work in partnership.
Okay. Whew, I had to get into the difficult side, right? I did. So
Yep,
you sent me this huge list. She's
right.
writing another book here. But so you talk about the bad and we've talked about distrust. But some of it, like you talk about replicating dominant practices. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting conversation of balance of, are you, the power? Are you can't, it's like you're not necessarily a boss, but you're the in-between zone, which we've talked about before, which is a very precarious place to be. You're kind of walking on eggshells, but at the same time, you have to be strong. So you can't, like you're saying, you have to be transparent and walk the talk.
Yeah, I don't think it's really walking on eggshells. It's walking a thin line, maybe, is the way I would say it,
Okay.
because you don't want to be perceived as, again, poor management, or that you're going to be impartial either way. You're going to be impartial. You're going to look at the situation, and you're going to do what's best for the organization. And that almost always includes what's best for the employee.
Okay. Yeah, because even they say, like, you want customer satisfaction, start with your employees, because if
Right.
your employees are happy, your customers are going to be taken care of.
Right, exactly. And that's where I really think of the possibilities of HR. One of the real possibilities that does happen, but not always, is HR is the way to operationalize values. So if your values are diversity inclusion, then your policies and practices and culture support that. If your values are quality, then your culture and policies and practices support that. If your values are customer service, then just what you said, you're going to start internally to make sure that is real. And HR is the place where you make that concrete and not just words on a sign.
Mm. Okay, I got it. You got to be concrete. You got to be straight up. No
Right,
favorites. No
right,
favoritism on the upper or the employee level.
right.
No favoritism anywhere other than for the company or the organization.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's what saves your butt too, as a
Right,
HR person, is if you really,
exactly.
yeah, when you do that. Okay,
Yeah, because
so
HR, a big part of HR, why management usually wants HR, is to protect the company for
mhm,
liability. Keep us safe, make sure we're following the laws, make sure nobody
yeah,
sues us. And that is absolutely important. But if that's all you're doing is paying attention to the law, then you're not taking care of the company. Because
okay,
taking care of the company is going to make sure people are engaged and
mm,
safe and able to do their work in a way that is maybe not always comfortable, but safe. And so that includes
yeah.
taking care of people. And
I
that's
look at it,
really protect
yeah.
the company.
HR is kind of like saves money and makes money, but it's not always looked at it that way. It's kind of like, oh, do we really have to have them? They're not doing a specific role. Oh, yes, they are.
Right.
Because if you have really good talent, right? You want to cultivate that. You want to
Absolutely.
make them happy so that there's more production or more done, right?
Engagement. Yeah.
That
And then that will attract other people with the same good skills and
So
talent.
then you have positive growth with people who care and are dedicated.
Right.
On the flip hand, it will save money, because if you are breaking laws, that can cost, and not just cost in dollars immediately, and because of lawsuits and lawyers, it will cost your reputation. And that, to me, I think now, I mean, you talk about leading for justice. I think this is really where we're at. I mean, company culture is crucial now. People won't put up with it anymore.
Right, exactly. People want to be seen and valued and recognized for who they are and the strengths they bring to the organization.
Mm.
And fairness and justice is a part of all that.
I remember when the beginning of the Me Too movement started, there's a gentleman who is the head of a very famous nonprofit. And I don't want to get the names wrong or anything, but and he was part of it. And he was actually, it was sad because he also, I watched him in a debate with a friend of ours who's since passed and has done a lot of work in that same field. I'm watching my P's and Q's here
Right,
now. I just want to say who it was, but I don't want to be wrong because I don't, I didn't, I was in shock when this happened.
right.
Was it true? Because that's the other thing, is that people could make stuff up, which sometimes happens in these cases, which is kind of a bummer for victims of harassment, true
Right.
victims, which really, it bugs me when that happens, but a lot of times it's true. But
Not a lot of time. Studies show it's about 10% of the time
what?
people make 10%
Oh,
is
10%. Okay, so not a lot. Okay,
right.
I thought it was the other way around. I was like, no way, no way, because it happens, and a lot of times people don't speak up, right?
Right.
And out of fear, and you can understand that. You think about single
Absolutely.
moms out there; they're like, oh, my job, my career, my kids. That's a big deal. Um, but those moments where people do it, it happens in the best of places, and it's
Right.
people are conscious of it now,
Yeah.
and they
And
will tell.
absolutely.
We
And
have
there
social
must be
media now,
taken.
which is really
Absolutely.
dangerous, you
Yeah.
know? So how does HR work now, like with remote workers? That's got to be a whole, you've got to do the Zooms, right? The Zoom thing.
Right. And I have to be honest that I was not in a staff role since the pandemic. So I have
Right.
been a consultant during this time. But what I told my clients was what we talked about before. You have to be a part of things, make sure there's time for the connecting part that would happen naturally when you're in person. It's not going to happen naturally if you're on Zoom all the time. You've got to create space for it. So taking time for check-ins, how's everybody doing? Let's do a question of the day. I'm a big proponent of things like that. Like,
Mm,
you know, what's something you're proud of that you did in the last week?
mm,
Takes 5 minutes and it helps build connection and again, trust, just
yeah.
because you're being human together.
Yes, I love that. We had a client who we went to, they were educational, a big educational organization. They taught teachers, they taught preteens, and they've since all retired, but it was quite a big organization. And we were there for a few things that we were working on, and she invited us to come in at the beginning of the day where all the staff, she had the staff come in. They had their own conference center and everything that, it was pretty big. A small business, but big. And they had a nonprofit. And so you go in and everybody knows you have to be, they had like a room where, buy the coffee and everything. Everybody gathers around in the circle and they click their fingers until everybody's on the same
Uh-huh.
page. And I thought it was pretty funny because I wanted to go, can I do a different beat? And apparently not. That didn't work. It's about unity, right? And alignment, which you're talking about. And everybody went around the room and she'd say, okay, anybody have something to share today? And
Uh-huh.
people, especially it was a weekend, I think it was a Monday, of anything to share over the weekend. And someone would say, oh, yes. And as soon as someone talked, everybody stopped
Uh-huh.
and stopped. So it was their floor, no one talking over. It was their floor, and it was supposed to be very quick. It's like, oh, my husband, my daughter got married this weekend, and then everybody's,
Uh-huh.
oh, congratulations, and then it goes right
Right.
back. So there's these little things that you
Right.
learn, and it's personal. And they taught a lesson that I think is really great. And sometimes I use it on podcasts when we have our panel discussions and I can't remember all three questions, but one of the staff actually met his wife this way on a train, asked these three questions, and they ended up marrying and being, you
Wow.
know, the main question is tell me something about yourself that I don't know about you. And
Uh-huh.
I think that is like a cool way, and I remember she did it to me on a podcast once, and I sat there going, I don't, what does she know about me? I couldn't come up with it. And I was like, I like horses. I don't know if you know that about me yet or not. It
Right.
was just
Right.
funny. But yeah, because I'm never really lost for words, but I was. But it because I kept going, does she know this? Does she know that?
Right. Right.
But yeah, I think those kinds of things where it's a conversation and sharing, it's not like you have to air dirty laundry. It's not like you have to share your personal life, really.
Right.
But
I
it's
think that is important with a open question like that is that, if you want to pass, you can because you want to again make it safe for people. And some people they might be, caught with I don't know what to say, or they might just go, no, I'm too private to do that. And that's
yeah,
okay.
that's okay. And some
Yeah.
people are shy. You
Right.
could be in a very, busy workplace with people that are, it's normally the people in the sales and the development side that are a little bit louder. Then there's the people
Mhm.
that they have their heads buried in their computer and their books, and that's because they're doing numbers or they're
Right,
creatives, right? And they are not always going to be the people, oh, I had this happen. A
right,
lot of there's people that are incredibly introverted, you
right.
know,
So you want to
and
make it safe for them too, but it's still connected even if they choose to pass.
yeah, exactly. Well, I like the anonymous surveys too. That's a,
Yeah. And the
but
other
yeah,
thing,
go ahead.
going back to your question about doing HR in a Zoom world, I think the other thing is HR being very clear. Again, what is okay, what is not, what is everyone's job? Do you understand everything about your job? Do you have any questions? Do you know who the reporting, what the reporting line is? Do you know the other members of your team? Making sure all of that is clear. Because when you're on Zoom, there is so much more room for confusion or just fuzziness to creep in,
Mm,
and not
yeah.
having somebody at the desk right next to you that you can say, hey, what's the policy around this? So
Mm.
clarity and accessibility so that again, people can ask questions if they need to.
Okay. What if, so like the other thing is you can be in a bigger workplace and people are at work and you're having to share an office with someone who just is annoying.
Hmm.
It's like they keep making noises or complaining or just loud and just not thoughtful about somebody else working there. That could be disruptive. So there's either communication or maybe those kinds of people shouldn't be in the same office for
Hmm.
productivity. So do you look at those kinds of things right down to those little bitty
Absolutely.
annoyances? Because
Yeah,
sometimes it is just better to split them up and they'll get along in another way. But
absolutely.
yeah,
And, sometimes that does come down to a mediation where you would help them talk to each other and get real nitty gritty about, so what would make this work? If you
mm,
have to share an office, what do you need? What do you need? And
okay,
maybe one has to wear earphones, maybe one has to step outside to eat their sunflower seeds or whatever, really nitty gritty, but doing it in a way that, again, the bottom line is, how can you make this work for the good of the organization?
okay. So the productivity has to be at the top. Yeah, the mission, like you're saying.
Right,
Yeah.
and with respect for each person.
Oh, I remember when Nancy had her magazine in South Africa, you had the creative staff, which were creative how they talk to their computers, creative it, and it was like leave the two guys in that room. And then you'd have, but they're in this zone, right? And they could get along with each other and talk because they did talk to their computers. And I do that too. It's just
Uh-huh.
no, I mean, and I'm not saying swearing or anything. Well, they had their moments, but like one guy just had his own language, and he sounded like a little robot talking. And
Right.
if the computer went ding, he goes, well, ding ding. And so but it was funny, but it could be annoying. But he's in a zone, right?
Absolutely.
But the
Right.
two of them could handle this and didn't
Yeah.
care,
So that
and
worked.
that worked. But when the sales staff came back in, and if they're working on just getting that line right, they'd go busting in, hey, 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 boom, people would get mad. Like the creatives may sound
Absolutely.
and be weird and loud on that side, but if the sales staff came in, hey, I scored a deal and da 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 da, that didn't work very well.
Right.
And Nancy always had Friday afternoon meetings where clients would come. It was like a happy hour kind of setup. She was like her own chamber of commerce there, and that wasn't happening at that time that much. But it was her way to connect with clients and her staff, and for everyone to kind of get to know each other.
Right.
And it was her way as
Great.
the leader to still have her fingers in it because as you're in when you run a magazine, you're in everything, right? But it was
Mhm.
her way to stay connected with everybody, and that really
Great.
worked. It was
Yeah, that's
cool
wonderful.
for
Yeah,
the design staff to hear from the clients. It was just a really good blend to do it, except for at one point she did hire a Jewish lady and a Muslim lady and didn't think it was going to be a big deal until they all got in the kitchen and freaked out. Oh, this isn't kosher. This isn't that.
uh,
And that became that became tenacious. But
right.
So we learned, but you shouldn't have to have that kind of discrimination. See, she was going, it's discrimination if I say one or another or
Right.
not.
No, but you again figure out what do you need? What do you need? How can we make it work for
Yeah.
both of you? Which
Yeah.
I'm sure they did. Yeah.
Well, that it became interesting. They had a big fight in the kitchen, and
Uh,
Nancy's like, "Oh my gosh, World War III is happening." So
right.
she had to, yeah, it was a learning case. I mean, it was,
Right.
you learn, but she did say,
Absolutely.
"What do you want? What do you need?" If you don't like my kitchen, don't use the kitchen,
Uh,
but at the same time, you can't really be that way.
right.
So,
Yeah.
so it's a
And in that situation, that's another important point that, if I mess up, if the CEO messes up, if somebody in leadership does something inappropriate or not great, even if it's not bad, it just wasn't like the right choice for that situation, being able to apologize, that goes a long way to build trust.
and taking acknowledgement without an excuse. That's
Absolutely.
the thing I hate about when people apologize. Sorry, I did, I'm sorry
I'm
I did
sorry
this,
I
but
made
this,
you feel that way. Yeah.
oh, oh, see, well, my favorite line, a breakup line with a guy is, I'm sorry, I can't be what you want me to be.
Uh-huh. Right.
So no, but you have to take ownership. The
Yeah. And
apologies that you have an excuse. Oh, I was doing just take ownership, you
right.
know?
There's a period after I'm sorry. And then sometimes it's appropriate to explain what happened, but first you
Mhm.
gotta say, I'm sorry.
Mm,
And then not a but.
yeah.
Let me explain what happened or what I was thinking, and I am sorry.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do a show on that. So before you go on this, because I know we get into all kinds of scenarios with this, when people are first hired into a company and you walk them around and orientate them, is there a kind of a company culture of how communication happens? Like you say to them, if you're not happy with something, come to me first. Don't get in an argument, or don't tell someone to stop chewing gum at their desk. Come to me first. Or is there a way that is like an this is how we do things here, to communicate. This is how our communication standards are.
Yes, ideally, you wanna, explain as much as you can about the culture. Some of it is not explainable, some of it is
Sure.
not clear cut, but you want them to know how to fit in. And
Mm,
so you don't wanna be micromanaging people, but being able to say, our culture is one where we do call each other out on things. So if you have a problem with somebody, it's okay to call somebody out, and somebody might call you out. Or the opposite, as you said, maybe the culture in another organization might be, we really prefer all conflict or concerns to go through your supervisor. So that's what we want you to do. If that doesn't work, then, we'll look at another way to do it or talk to HR and they'll help. So
okay.
as much as you can explain those procedures, and I think it's equally important to say, how does that work for you? To
Okay.
both talk and listen. Listening is such a crucial part of successful workplace relationships.
I agree. I agree, because somebody can come in and not be used to something, if and maybe not even be used to a nice company culture.
Right?
It could be the opposite side. Someone's nice to you and
Absolutely.
you're like, "What? Someone's being nice to me." You
Right.
know,
Yeah,
that's a truth. Or
absolutely.
they're in a
Make you
new
be
role.
suspicious.
Yeah, I mean, people get nervous and anxious going. That's the other, I have friends who have anxiety that they would go by Monday, Sunday night, they couldn't go to sleep because they're nervous about work or any kind
Right.
of project, like true anxiety. And I think if HR knew that, and a lot of people try to hide it,
Mhm.
if they get anxious about something, and yet if people knew and could work together, there's a lot of invisible things that people don't know about people that
Right.
they're hiding. There's a lot of, disease, invisible
Mhm.
things that people are going through that you don't know. That's
Absolutely. Challenges. Yeah.
that's the other part of it. So, wow.
Right.
Well, I think we covered a lot of ground again.
We did. There's so much to talk about here.
There is, there is.
Always fun to talk to you, Lisa.
You too. Thank you so much. Everybody, again, Rita's website is supervisionmatters.com. The link is in the episode show notes. And of course, her books, Supervision Matters was the first one. Second is Leading for Justice. And of course, keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you,
All
Rita.
right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show. This show is brought to you by Big Blend Magazines. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com and check out our magazines at blendradioandtv.com.